Hey everyone, TR here and thanks for dropping by and watching my video. So I've made a second batch of tips and guides for oxygen not included, the thermal upgrade version. So hope you enjoy the content and let's get on right to it. So tip number one, be aware of the structures or buildings that produce a lot of heat. Now heat affects temperature in your base, so you need to be strategic on where you want to put those buildings in. Now, when we look at the temperature overlay, we can see the different temperatures available in the game. And in my colony, you can see that most of my area is in green, which is the temperate zone, the ideal zone for your duplicants to work, to sleep, to eat, and even ideal for your plants to grow. So what are the buildings that actually affect or create a lot of heat? So the best example would be our generators like coal generator, hydrogen generator, the tiny batteries or the batteries, and even your biodistillers, your water purifiers generate a lot of heat. Now, these things can be mitigated in a sense that there are ways to prevent them from producing a lot of heat. For example, your supercomputer, when you're doing your research, it produces a lot of heat. So the ideal place for them to be put in would be in the frozen biome because the frozen biome in general is in a very cold temperature. So you would want to put them in here so that the temperature of your supercomputer wouldn't reach to scorching hot, which can affect your duplicants, causing them to have the scalding status, which can potentially damage them and put enough discomfort for them that they would stop what they're doing and leave that area. So also take note what are the other temperatures that you will see in your different biomes. So for the frozen biome, as I've mentioned earlier, it's always in the chilled or cold zone. For the slime biome, it's always in the warm zone. And for the purple biome, it's borderline going scorching. So you have to take note on where you want to put your structures in, especially if you want to put your plants like the bristle blossoms. So you don't want to put them here in the purple biome area because the area is too hot for the plants to grow. Take note that the bristle blossoms has a maximum temperature of only 23 degrees Celsius. So anything higher than that, it will hamper the growth of your plant or it will just stop it from growing altogether. So tip number two, make sure to manage your algae resource properly, especially at the first 100 cycles of the game. The resource is quite limited, it's only available in three biomes, which is your starting biome, the slime biome, and the purple biome. And you have to take note in terms of density, the starting biome has the most density of algae, which is around 260 kilograms of algae per tile, while on the slime biome you will only have around 150 kilograms per tile. Then in the purple biome you'll have around 120 to 130 kilograms per tile. Now in terms of usage, there are only two structures that actually use algae so that you can produce oxygen, which is the algae deoxidizer and the algae terrarium. And you have to take note that the algae deoxidizer consumes a lot of algae, which is around 1,000 grams of algae to produce 600 grams of oxygen, and algae terrarium uses around 30 grams of algae and produces 40 grams of oxygen. Now, do not create a lot of algae deoxidizers in your base because it consumes so much algae that you won't be able to sustain the usage of algae versus the supply of algae. So my advice here is that only create one algae deoxidizer and maybe around cycle 15 to 20, that's the only time we'll start creating it because that's the time where your oxalates will be depleted. So that's the only time you create it, then don't add any more algae deoxidizers. As is, it's enough for your base to sustain with a decent amount of oxygen concentration. Now for algae terrariums, their purpose is mainly to keep the carbon dioxide at bay. So it's really up to you where you want to put them, but I would advise to limit the usage of algae terrariums to maybe around 3 or 4. Unless it's really essential that your place is flooded with carbon dioxide, then you need to figure out a way to mitigate that issue, either by digging more space so that your carbon dioxide will fall down away from your main base, or try to create terrariums where it will maximize the consumption of carbon dioxide and removing them from your base. Tip number three, learn how to use your water pipes properly. Now, there are a number of structures in the game that actually use water pipes. So mainly the water purifiers, the lavatories, the showers, the water pumps, and the air scrubbers and the electrolyzers. Now, there are quite a number of buildings that actually have both input and output of water. So you need to be aware which one is the input and which one is the output. So based on the overlay sample here, it explains that the intake of water should be the green one. So make sure that you're using the correct pipe that flows in correctly into the input and the correct pipe that flows the output of water in your structure. Now do not, I repeat, do not link pipes from the input into the output because that will not work. So the structure will not function. So make sure do not link the pipes between the input and output. And also I would recommend that you do not also link the pipes for your, let's say, output in just one straight line because potentially that can cause water clogging, and that can be a problem for your structure and it may not function as well. So my recommendation is you put a segregation of pipes and put enough pipe tiles into them so that the water can flow without clogging. Now for the showers, that's the only main building that I would say require a number of tiles in both input and output in order for it to function properly. My initial count would be around 8 liquid pipe tiles for both input and output in order for it to avoid having the water clogging issue. Now for the lavatories, you only need around 2 pipe tiles. That should be more than enough for it to function properly. I just didn't want to risk of linking them both together because tendency is sometimes they can get clogged. So I just segregated the output tiles, pipe tiles like this, so that it guarantees that the water will not get clogged. So tip number 4, know the maximum wattage of your wires. So in the game, there's only two types of wires. So one is the electrical wire, and the second one is the heavy water wire. The electrical wire has a maximum capacity of 1000 watts, while the heavy water wire has a maximum capacity of 2000 watts or 2 kilowatts. So you need to be careful when you're connecting structures within the electric circuits because your circuits has a maximum limit of 1000 watts if you're using the electrical wires and 2000 watts if you're using heavy wire wires. Now, you can see that whenever you create structures, it'll show you how much wattage it's using. So for the gas pumps, it's using 240 each. Then for the electrolyzers, it's using 120 each. So it tells you how much wattage they need in order to function. So do take note of that because right now you see that my wattage is already at 960, so that's why it's turning yellow. It's straining, meaning that I'm almost at the peak or I'm almost at the maximum limit of my electrical wires. If I added one more structure here, it'll mostly overload and it'll destroy the wires. And you have to repair them and it'll keep destroying it until you make some compensation. Either you replace all of the wires into heavy wadded wire or you can cut some of the structures and create a separate electrical circuit for the other structure so that this won't be straining anymore. So tip number 5, there are some actual practical use that you can do with your storage compactors. So first off, the storage compactors, as we are aware, you can filter out materials that you do not want your storage compactor to carry. So what I would normally do is I would not carry polluted dirt and slime and liquefiable items which are ice, polluted ice, and snow in my main base. Mainly because the polluted dirt and slime actually creates polluted oxygen, and for the polluted ice, snow, and ice, they create water or polluted water in the base. So what happens is that they melt and they will scatter a lot of water in your base and potentially maybe can cause hypothermia or chilling effects to your duplicates, and it can also scatter contaminated oxygen from the polluted water that's being produced by the polluted ice. So what I did is I segregated all of those items into my slime biome and have them put everything there. So at least the polluted oxygen will not do anything to my main base. And if ever they scatter some water, they will go down to somewhere here, which is okay because I'm going to be using the water here later anyways for filtration. Now, a second practical use that you can do with a storage compactor is that you can put one compactor to feed your hatch. Now, what you want to do here is to select which material you have the most abundant. For my case, I have sandstone. So I specifically advise my duplicates to use sandstone only in this particular compactor in order to feed my hatch. So what the hatch does is that they eat the resource here and they will produce coal. So you can see here I have around 5,000 kilograms of coal mainly produced from my hatch. Now, another practical use that you can do with your compactor is to transfer a specific seed, which is the whiskwort seed. Because right now in the current build, you can't plant a wizard seed using a planter box or a aquatic farm tile. So the only way for you to do it is to create a compactor that's specified to only carry the seed itself, which is the wizard seed. So let's say, for example, create a compactor here, then specify that it only creates the wizard seeds and put the priority up so that your duplicate can carry the seed up into the compactor on where it's located. Then you untick the wizard seed, then it will be dropped onto the floor. Now you can deconstruct the compactor so that the seed will grow on its own and it'll turn into a fully grown wizard plant. Now you don't need, I think, anything like fertilizers or a specific temperature in order for the wizard to grow. As far as I'm aware, you can practically put it anywhere and it will actually grow on its own. Now I may be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, for the time being, that's what I know about the wizard. So those are the 5 additional tips that you can use to play Oxygen Not Included. So if you did enjoy the content, please do leave a like and subscribe, or leave a comment if you have any suggestions or anything that I can improve on in the video. And if you didn't like the video, then there's a dislike button there, then just feel free to press it. And thanks again for dropping by and watching the video, and hope to see you again next time. TR out.